So then folks, here we are. F1 testing is done and dusted. We've got 2 weeks until the season opening Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, so that means that teams will be starting to ship out all of the things that they need for that first race. Let's have a little bit of a chat about what's going on in F1 testing, and if this is not out on the 20th, blame my ISP, because I've gotten home from being away for a week and I have no fibre optic internet. Which sounds incredibly first world, but the 5G tower around the corner from me doesn't work either, so I don't know if I have enough signal to get this video out tonight. Yeah, wow. How fanciful that feels. Yeah. F1 anyways. If you're to follow the headlines of it, it sounds like it's been up and down for so many different teams in so many different ways. There have been rumours about the fuel homologation, with some people running surrogate fuels, as in the same kind of things that they are supposed to be running fully sustainably, but they're just running it to E10 standard instead. Now, rumour is Petronas is one of the ones who's doing that, but at the same time, from what I've heard from the race, the teams that are running surrogate fuels still have the same fuel composition, it's just where it's being sourced from. It's not being sustainably sourced. Yet. That will change for Melbourne, because that's one of the big things for F1 this year. The fuel has to be 100% sustainably sourced, like we had in the WRC before that petrol supplier unfortunately went bankrupt. But anyways, let's have a bit more of a talk about what happened out on track, because there were some bits that were highlights and some bits that were definitely lowlights for some teams as well. Highlights, I would say, Ferrari's continued innovation. I know somebody also pointed out Cadillac were running blanking on their cooling vents over the past couple of days. Or what looked like blanking. It looked like it could have even been 2 different engine covers. So it'll be interesting to see how that varies from race to race. That could be something that we need to keep an eye on over the course of the season, especially when you've got the altitude tracks like, say, Red Bull Ring in Mexico City. But outside of all of that, Ferrari, yeah, their innovations, the stuff around the exhaust that seemed very kind of exhaust-blown diffusery, and that DRS flap, that's the thing that's gotten everyone talking, isn't it? The DRS flap that just inverts the rear wing plane and generates lift. Do you think they were so worried about the plankwear DSQ that Hamilton got in China last year? Just went, we're not allowing that to happen again. I don't know. But what I do like is this rule set has done one thing that everybody wanted to see, which is just all of this innovation, just big mad ideas. We've seen zero side pods coming back. We now see a DRS flap that inverts on itself. We're seeing these things that teams are now going to have to be like, hang on, we should use one of our CAD runs to do this, because when it comes to like the technical regulations and the design testing and everything like that, there are regulations about how much testing of parts, how much manufacturing of parts can be done by a team as part of the whole cost cap and almost pseudo-bop that F1 has. You know, to stop it becoming a massive development arms race. So I have a feeling that every team, if they haven't already had a Ferrari-style solution, are going to look at it and go, wonder what that does to our simulations. Because what I would imagine it does as a benefit for Ferrari, and look, I'm an historian. I did GCSE physics and that's it. I've just been an F1 fan for 20 or so years. What I'd imagine is, as people are saying, it generates lift because you're inverting something that is designed to generate drag and push the car down to the track as well through downforce. That's why we call it downforce in a way. But what you're doing by generating lift is you're raising up the rear of the car a little bit because of the way that it's going. And if you have it in tandem with that extra element that we saw around the exhaust, you have the potential to raise the rear ride height a bit more, which could mean that you run the rear ride height a bit more aggressively, which means you don't worry about it bottoming out on the straights, which means you don't worry about plank wear. And yes, we are going back to Shanghai 2025. I don't know. That's my observation for it. Other observations from this test? Well, I would say the Mercedes power units have been relentlessly consistent. I might talk about the engine reg debacle in another video, but interestingly, what I heard from the Races F1 podcast, it sounds like teams generally aren't happy with it. Either the changes coming in from, August, September, so you've got until the end of the summer break, and also the fact that you still got the ambient test and the hot test. It's going to be interesting. And it will have an impact on this engine arms race. What'll be interesting as well is I would assume Red Bull powertrains aren't going to be affected by it. So I would also assume the Mercedes probably aren't going to be affected by it. Though we'll have to wait and see until Zandvoort, Monza, before we find out whether there's an inkling of truth to that. But on the power unit side, Honda are definitely struggling. In fact, they've had limited mileage because of the issues. They've put out a press statement because of the issues. And you do feel for teams when something goes wrong. Now, at the same time, it sounds like the car itself might be a bit of a dud. At least from the reporting that I've heard, from the footage that I've seen. There may be some issues here or there in terms of balance, in terms of stability, in terms of drivability. And that married together with a rushed Honda development for the new engine. Because remember, the facilities they had are now handed over to Red Bull powertrains. They've lost a lot of their staff to Red Bull powertrains, or if they didn't go into the Red Bull powertrains outfit, they went across to Mercedes, or they, God forbid, ended up in Viri and ended up losing their jobs, or they've gone to Maranello, or they've gone over to the new Audi project. Yeah, there's various different places they could have gone instead of sticking with Honda as a company. And Honda weren't able to recoup the time lost because they were an existing engine manufacturer. So unlike Audi, who could have spent as much as they wanted developing their engines, Honda were hamstrung and they had to develop their engines within the current power unit manufacturer guidances and their own cost cap. But that's the world of F1, and as for whether or not any of these issues are going to be a big thing, we'll have to wait until the first competitive miles are run. So, qualifying in Melbourne. Yeah, only a couple of weeks. Let me know your thoughts, let me know your feelings, let me know your conclusions in the comment section down below. As always, folks, thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for joining, thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time, bye for now.